My mom shocked me at dinner. She said, she used my college fund to pay for my sister's wedding. Don't be selfish, she added. It's family. I just smiled. 2 hours later, my grandpa asked casually, so, how's that $21,000 trust one left for you? My mom's fork froze midair. I looked at him, leaned in, and whispered 4 words. 5 minutes later, he was on the phone. 30 minutes later, tires crunched in the driveway. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said them. Calm, entitled, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like she hadn't just stolen from me and announced it at my birthday dinner like it was some kind of gift. What made it worse was the way she walked around the house like she owned it. Like it wasn't my place, like I was the guest. They had never lived here. Not for a single day. This house was my grandfather's. And a year ago, he signed it over to me for reasons I still don't fully understand, said I'd earned it, whatever that meant. My parents and siblings didn't take that well, but they played nice when they needed something, which was often. And now here she was, my mom, using my kitchen like she belonged in it, opening drawers like she forgot she never paid for a single spoon in the place. She even brought her own cheap decorations for my birthday dinner. Plastic balloons, streamers, a paper crown. She tried to make it look festive, but it felt like an invasion. Then she dropped the bomb like it was nothing. We were halfway through the steak when she smiled across the table and said it. I used your college fund to help with Bethy's wedding. I knew you wouldn't mind. Family comes first. I thought I misheard her. I asked what college fund she was talking about. She looked at me like I was the crazy one. The one you've been sitting on. That $21,000 grandpa left you last year. I blinked. I told her I didn't even know about that. I said it wasn't mine. I never touched it. And that even if I had, she should have asked me. She waved me off. You didn't even plan on going to college next year. We're helping your sister. Don't be selfish. Selfish? She took $21,000 without asking and handed it over to Bethany for a wedding she can't afford. And I'm the selfish one. I looked at my dad. He said nothing, just kept chewing like this was business as usual. Bethany, of course, didn't even flinch. Her phone lit up next to her plate. She was scrolling Instagram, probably liking her own engagement photos. I looked around my own dining room and felt like a stranger. They all acted like this was normal, like I was supposed to nod and say thank you. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I didn't storm out. I just smiled. That smile must have thrown them off because they stopped talking. My mom tried to change the subject. Bethany rolled her eyes and muttered something about me being dramatic. That was when the front door opened. Grandpa Carl and Grandma Linda had perfect timing. He walked in like a retired general, calm, slow, but you could feel the tension shift in the room. My grandma followed, quiet and sharp-eyed, taking everything in. They took off their coats. Grandpa patted me on the shoulder and handed me a wrapped box. Then, like it was the most casual thing in the world, he asked from across the table, so, how's that $21,000 trust? One left you still sitting on it, or you finally decided what to do with it? My mom froze. Her fork literally stopped midair. My dad cleared his throat. Bethany put her phone down. I looked at him. Then, I leaned in and whispered, what? 21 grand. You could hear a pin drop. 5 minutes later, Grandpa was on the phone. 30 minutes later, I watched 2 squad cars roll up the driveway. I didn't say a word. I just sat back in my chair and waited. When the squad cars pulled up, it felt like the whole house held its breath. Nobody moved at first. My mom stood there stiffly with her hands still clutching her fork, as if maybe if she stayed frozen long enough, it would all go away. My dad kept glancing at Grandpa Carl like he was trying to figure out whether this was real or just some kind of sick bluff, but it was very real. The officers walked right in. Grandpa must have told them they had permission. One was holding a clipboard. The other had a hand resting lightly near his belt. Not tense, just aware. My mom launched into damage control immediately. She started talking way too fast. Said there was a family misunderstanding, that it was just some money used for a necessary expense. Said it had been moved with good intentions. The officer didn't even blink. He looked at her, then at Grandpa. Grandpa calmly handed him a folder he'd been holding since he arrived. Not rushed, not dramatic, just matter of fact. The officer flipped through the papers, legal documents, bank statements, account signatures. Then he looked up and asked one simple question. Ma'am, did you authorize a transfer from this account under Jacob Woodmore's name? She hesitated for less than a second, and that was enough. She tried to twist it. Said it was her son's money, and therefore technically a family asset that she and my dad were just trying to keep things within the family that I wasn't using it anyway. That's when Grandpa cut her off completely. That trust account was created under Jacob's name with funds from me. His parents were never granted access. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's unauthorized withdrawal. If he presses charges, you're looking at fraud. Everyone went dead quiet, even Bethany. Then, right on cue, she jumped in, acting like the victim like she always does. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. It's not like he earned that money. He just got lucky Grandpa gave it to him. That was when Grandma finally spoke. She looked at Bethany, didn't even raise her voice. And you're planning a wedding with a borrowed dress, a maxed out credit card, and now stolen money. Maybe it was finally time for them to learn what responsibility really looked like. Bethany stayed silent after that. The police didn't arrest anyone right there, but one officer explained the next steps. If the money wasn't returned immediately, a full investigation could be launched. My mom's face went pale. My dad tried asking about repayment options, but the officer was already finished talking. They handed the folder back to Grandpa and left, saying the paperwork would follow as soon as the door closed. My mom turned to me like it was my fault. You really let it get this far? I didn't bother answering. I didn't need to. Grandpa stepped forward, loud and clear. You two are no longer welcome here. Hand over the keys that you'd think they'd fight back, but they didn't. They knew better. The house was mine now. Grandpa had made it official when he signed it over. They weren't on the deed. They weren't on a lease. My dad muttered under his breath and pulled the spare key from his coat. My mom followed. Bethany didn't say goodbye, just grabbed her phone and purse, storming out like a toddler denied ice cream. They left without looking back. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet. Not empty, but peaceful. But Grandpa wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning, I woke up to an email from the family accountant, someone I'd never even spoken to before. It said Grandpa was freezing all non-essential disbursements from the family trust. Translation: my parents were cut off. Attached was another note. You'll have a new financial advisor assigned this week. Just for you. It had begun. Grandpa was about to show everyone exactly what happens when you steal from your own blood and then lie about it. And something told me this was only the beginning. The house felt empty, but in a good way, like the fresh air after you've taken the trash out. I wandered from room to room, still adjusting to the silence. No one barging in. No passive-aggressive comments about my life. No fake affection from people who only saw me as a bank account. Still, I knew it wasn't over. Not really. Only 2 days had passed since that dinner, since the police left, and since my family walked out with their tails between their legs. Grandpa hadn't said much since then, but I could feel something was brewing. He wasn't the kind to let things slide. That's when I found the letter "T" was in the hallway drawer, buried under dead pens, broken chargers, and old junk mail. My name was written on the envelope in neat, bold handwriting. No postage, just left there. Inside was a 2-page letter. No greeting, no small talk, just this. If you found this on your own, you're sharper than I thought. And I already believed you were the sharpest in this family. The rest read like both a warning and a challenge. He explained he'd been planning this for a long time. He said he'd always known, since I was a kid, that my parents and Bethany would eventually try to grab whatever they could. It wasn't only greed, he wrote, it was entitlement. They believed they were owed simply for existing. He called it a family disease. Then came the part that made me sit down. The trust was only the surface. That money had been a test. What's hidden deeper is yours too, but only if you prove you're nothing like them. I sat there with the letter for a long while, trying to make sense of it. Then I noticed the postscript. Check under the desk. Bottom drawer. You'll know what to do. I practically sprinted to Grandpa's old office. The desk hadn't been touched in months. I pulled open the bottom drawer, felt underneath, and found something taped there, a small black flash drive. No label. No clues. I plugged it into my laptop. Password protected. I texted Grandpa just one line. Found it. What's next? 2 minutes later, he replied, dinner. 7 p.m. No one else. When I got to his house, he was already at the kitchen table, laptop open, a bottle of scotch beside him. I sat down. He didn't waste time. That flash drive has everything. Audio, records, even your mother's voice asking for the money before you turned 18. I froze. He gestured to the laptop. I made a copy. Want to hear something? He opened a folder labeled 2006. Inside was a recording. My mom's voice, drunk, angry, ranting at someone that he always liked that kid more. I'm his daughter, and he's just a brat who got lucky being born at the right time. That house should have been mine, she went on. A lot more, things I'll never unhear. Grandpa paused the recording and looked at me. That money was never about college. That's just what they wanted you to believe. There's more. A lot more. Real estate, stock options, private accounts, a cabin in Vermont. All in your name, if you want it. I could barely process it. My mom had been scheming since I was a child. All that fake affection. The hugs. The birthday cards with no money inside. Just guilt. It had all been part of a long game. Then Grandpa hit me with something I didn't expect. If you want the rest, we're going to court. Civil and criminal. Fraud. Theft. Maybe even perjury. You press charges, we freeze them out completely. But once you start, there's no backing down. You ready for that? I looked at him. He wasn't bluffing. Everything was already set in motion. I was just the final piece. The silence stretched. I didn't say yes. I didn't need to. I picked up the flash drive, slid it into my pocket, and gave a single nod. Grandpa poured himself a drink, then one for me. All right, he said. Let's ruin their month. By the next morning, it had already begun. 6 missed calls, 3 from my mom, 1 from my dad, 2 from Bethany. Then a flood of texts from her. Starting with your being a child and spiraling into full meltdown across 5 screens. She said I was destroying her life. That I was vindictive. And my favorite line, you have no idea what you've just started, but I did. I knew exactly what I'd started. And they were finally realizing it, too. That afternoon, Grandpa and I sat in the office of his lawyer, Mr. Lawson, a man who looked like he'd been cast straight out of a courtroom drama. Pinstriped suit. Expensive watch. A voice that wasted no words. He barely acknowledged me when I walked in. He didn't have to. The documents on the table said everything. Lawson laid out the next moves like chess, civil suit, fraud, felony theft, injunctions freezing every account tied to the trust. Then came the twist. The wedding was being halted. If trust money funded it, all payments were frozen. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because I cared about the wedding, but because I realized this was permanent. Bethany was about to lose everything. 2 hours later, Mark showed up. Pale. Panicked. Asking if I'd really torched the whole thing. He said vendors were dropping them, payments bouncing. Then he mentioned my mom told him Grandpa had promised to pay, just that I was being difficult. They'd planned to scapegoat me all along. I shut the door and told him to talk to Lawson. That night, Grandpa came over with a wooden box of old family photos. This family used to mean something, he said. Then he handed me a new will. Everything, from his estate to the trust, now left to me alone. That he wasn't done. He pulled out a police report. My mom's beloved car? Still in his name. He'd just reported it stolen. Minutes later, Bethany texted, Mom's outside screaming. The car's gone. You went too far. I didn't answer. I just looked out at the quiet street. Knowing this wasn't over, the next day was calm. Too calm. The silence felt like regrouping. And sure enough, 46 hours later, there was a knock. I opened the door and nearly laughed. Bethany, standing there like she hadn't just spent days tearing me apart over text. Bethany showed up looking wrecked. No makeup, messy hair, eyes like she hadn't slept. She asked to talk. I let her in. She said Mom was a mess, Dad was lost, and now the story was that Grandpa had gone senile and I was being manipulated. Then she tried something new, an apology. Not for what they did, just for how it went down. She said we could fix this as a family. Then came the folder. Inside, a settlement. Dropped the suit. Money returned. Wedding canceled. But the signature at the end wasn't hers. It was mine. Forged. I photographed it, told her to leave, and that was it. Grandpa had Lawson add forgery to the charges that night. Now it wasn't just financial. It was criminal. The next morning Grandpa dropped the bomb. Foreclosure. Years ago, he co-signed on a second mortgage my parents never paid. He'd been covering the interest. Not anymore. In 60 days they'd lose the property and their credit. He smirked. They'll find out at the barbecue. The barbecue was surreal. Big yard. Family laughing like nothing was wrong. My parents showed up late. Bethany clung to Mark like glue. Then Grandpa arrived. Loud as ever. Box under his arm. He passed out papers. Everything. The trust, the forgery, the stolen car, the foreclosure.